But in a surprise twist that could happen only in the wild world of U.S. politics, Donald Trump has weighed in on the storm that's still swirling around the Jan. 6th Capitol riot. On a day crowded with legal arguments at the Supreme Court in which Trump's lawyers argued the riot was not an insurrection. Trump himself seemed to suggest otherwise. This contradiction isn't just puzzling. It's akin to adding fuel to the fire of an already heated debate. As a matter of fact, the attorneys of Trump told the court that January 6th could not have been an insurrection because there was no attempt by the demonstrators to overthrow the government pre-planned in that scenario. But at the same time, there is Trump's own words that seem to oppose such a position almost simultaneously. Discrepancies such as these should not only raise questions, but also make one think twice. That's not a semantic debate over what to call what happened on January 6th. Much more than that hangs on these labels. Labeling the event insurrection has implications in a whole host of legal realms, especially for Trump. It complicates his position at the least, as he is faced with myriad legal fights against the casual statement that seems to be an acknowledgement of it as insurrection. Nikki Haley, somehow caught in this labyrinthine mess, had earlier been drawn into the blame by Trump of January 6th, though she hadn't even been in Washington, D.C. that day. Trump's recent words have indirectly exonerated her more so, bringing into focus the chaotic and confusing situation. Add to the saga the involvement of the Supreme Court. They are to mull over whether what Trump did on January 6th might keep him from running for office again. As the court's conservative justices hinted at their reluctance to take such a drastic step, the political tilt of the court is on the line. But legal fine points or technicalities are not the only issue at stake. It is the health of U.S. democracy. The continued discourse around January 6th says much about the current state of American politics and emphasizes the fragility of democracy, necessitating protection. The events of that day uncovered some of the vulnerabilities in the American system, and the continued debate underlines the difficulties in which they are attempted to be addressed. This is not simply a story of riot or insurrection, but of how America responds to threats toward its democratic system, where that democratic system places the onus on individuals and sets the future. Just one part of a larger picture which deals with how democratic norms and institutions can weather challenges is represented by the conflicting messages by Trump and his legal team. The next steps in this story are the Supreme Court's decision, Trump's next moves, and the American public's reaction. But one thing is certain, January 6th was not just a debate for the day. It was a debate about democracy's future in America and what it will take to save it. The case could set a landmark development that could reshape the American political landscape, as the Supreme Court seems to be headed towards ruling against measures aimed at keeping the former president off the 2024 election ballot. It represents a huge win for Trump's potential ruling to be the Republican nominee and a rebuke to state-level measures aimed at ending his candidacy. The core issue before the court is whether Trump's post-2020 election actions, in particular his alleged role in the January 6th Capitol riot, could disqualify him from ever again holding office under a post-Civil War constitutional provision. That provision was to preclude any person who had been engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the Ursenat service in any civil office. An opinion split became evident among the judges during the session. The conservative camp of the court, the justices presumably swayed by far-right and Christian nationalist views, would want to resort to historical precedents and original intentions of the framers of the Constitution, one might suspect. The liberal justices instead focused on Trump's conduct and its effects on democratic norms and institutions, saying that his actions were just the sort of thing that the post-Civil War provision was designed to avert. But the conservative justices, including those nominated by Trump, appeared unswayed by such arguments and were charged with partisanship. So the integrity of the Supreme Court is at risk, as its autonomous arbiter role is put in doubt by many who rather view it as a vessel for partisan politics. The implications of the court's forthcoming decision run deep into the political landscape of today, affecting not just today's political surface, but also its depths, for some time to come in regard to the allegations of insurrection and the qualifications for public office. The case has fueled the debate on judicial meddling in democracies and the division of powers between the state and federal authorities in determining the eligibility of candidates on ballots. While the country awaits the final judgment, all eyes are likely to turn to the voters. But given that that judicial path is looking less and less likely to dispel these issues, therefore to maintain democratic values, the onus falls on the electorate. The coming elections are thus a crucial referendum on whether and how the country gets to stay democratic. This moment will be a key reminder of the issues which face the U.S. once again, as legal and electoral outcomes will probably shape the U.S. for generations to come in this superpower nation. House Speaker Mike Johnson and former President Trump have shockingly said President Biden may on his own close the U.S. border amid a heated immigration reform debate, sidelining a bipartisan immigration bill in the process. They point to the president's executive authority for justification for sweeping changes in border policy. But the view is simplistic and sidesteps the legal and practical difficulties involved in such an action. The immigration bill, which was a product of bipartisan efforts and was considered a conservative initiative, is now at a standstill due to obstruction from House Republicans. This more than resistance is politically loyal to Trump, an opponent to anything that could be at the advantage of the Biden administration rather than something against the bill. It represents a larger theme in American politics, how partisan loyalty seems to trump practical answers to important problems. The critics of Johnson and Trump's position have argued that the border cannot simply be closed with an executive order. It's a policy no United States administration can impose given the legal precedents and the structure of the Immigration and Nationality Act. The Trump administration has tried similar hardline border policies before, only to face legal challenges and resulting inefficacy in achieving a reduction in migrant flows. The ongoing border crisis brings to the fore both humanitarian and security concerns that cannot be afforded to be overlooked any longer, with an urgent demand for comprehensive immigration reform. Yet political rhetoric all too often seems to take precedence over searching for real solutions, with some Republicans appearing more focused on opposing Biden than seriously addressing the underlying causes of the crisis. Amid this political theater, some Republicans, such as Congressman Roy, have criticized the idea that a president can unilaterally achieve border security and have used Trump administration experiences to make their point. This internal strife within the Republican Party thus indicates that they have realized that legislative action is required, but the party is blocked by their loyalty to Trump and his base. Under the Biden administration, this involves mechanisms such as expedited removals and increased detention capacity, although both are temporary measures for a larger problem on their own. The promise is that the immigration bill can offer more lasting solutions, but the rejection of the bill by House Republicans constrained the remedies of this administration. The political saga reveals how border security has become a political football at the expense of the migrants and the American public. It calls for a rational debate and sober efforts to chart a way in dealing with one of the most intractable problems of the country. Thank you for being with us today. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel in case you haven't. Stay with us for more updates and stay curious.